So then, over the last couple of days, there's been heavy speculation surrounding the futures of Arsenal defenders, including Ben White and Myles Lewis-Skelly. And today I just wanted to talk about them quickly because they're both players that I want to see stay because, they're fan favourites. Lewis-Skelly coming through Hale End with Ethan Nwaneri alongside him. Ben White coming in a good 5 years ago now. It'll be 5 years since he arrived in the summer. And look, the thing with Ben White, right? And we'll talk about him first. So the way this video is going to work is I'm going to spend the first half talking about Ben White, and then there's going to be chapters, so you'll easily be able to find the news on Myles Lewis-Skelly later on in the video if that's what you're interested in. However, we're going to start on Ben White, and he's a player that I will always have respect for. I've got him on the back of one of my shirts, actually. He is a player that would really put in his everything for Arsenal. He played for a good 6 or 7 months with an injury in 23-24 when we really had no other options in that right back position, with Thomas Partey being out for injured for so long, Jurriën Timber doing his ACL. So there were really no other options in that right back department other than maybe Tomiyasu, who had fitness issues of his own. So and to be fair, Tomiyasu was playing at left back quite a lot of that season. So that Ben White would really run himself into the ground. He'd pick up injuries all the time, and we're really starting to see, now he doesn't have to play every single game. The amount of squads that he's not included in, the amount of games that he's missed because of these injuries that he's been picking up along the way, they're really starting to add up now, and I really don't know. I don't think that Ben White will probably hit the same form that he did just a couple of years ago. So Ben White, it'd be really upsetting to see him leave. I really hope that he stays because I think he is a really good player on his day. However, those fitness issues are obviously a problem. And I think if you are looking to sell him, this is probably the right time. I think he's only got a year. He might have a couple of years left on his contract, because he did sign a new one just a couple of years ago, I think. So, contract-wise, he's probably still tied down to a little while. Obviously, his age, he's 28, so he's really, at the peak end of his career, I think. And you could still probably get a decent fee for him. And the club that seem to be talked about the most when it comes to Ben White is Everton under David Moyes. Now, Everton obviously need a right back. They're in need of a right-sided fullback. Jake O'Brien's been playing there, but with the ageing Seamus Coleman, Jake O'Brien's really a centre-back. You can see, even James Garner's played there. You can see why Everton would be targeting Ben White, because he is a very, very good right-back, as I've said countless times. He's a very, very good player. He's got that Premier League experience. He came through at Brighton before he signed for Arsenal. He played for Leeds as well. So I think Everton, if he was to move there, he'd get a lot of game time under David Moyes, and he can obviously operate at right back and at centre back. And what we've seen from David Moyes recently is a Tarkowski next to a Michael Keane with two sort of centre backs at full back. We've seen Jared Branthwaite play there. We've seen the other guy who I just mentioned, Jake O'Brien, play there in those full-back positions. So Ben White would be a really, really good fit for that Everton side. And I think you could still, he'd be playing in the Premier League. He'd be happy with that. I still think you can get a good fee for him because he is technically still an England international. He's just been called up for these friendlies against Uruguay and Japan, I think. I really don't take that much interest in England if they're not, at major tournaments. So yeah, that's the news on Ben White and my opinions on it. I really hope he stays at Arsenal, but look, if the club really want to sell, then this is probably the right time to do it. And then we can go and buy a new, younger sort of right back. These rumours were coming out from Hand of Arsenal, claiming that Ben White will probably end up leaving Arsenal with replacement targets being Tino Livramento from Newcastle, who off again is an England international, and also Alex Jimenez at Bournemouth, who's not been in the Premier League for that long. He's still 19, 20 years of age, I think. So, the two very young options to replace a slightly aging Ben White with injury issues. If the fee's right, then I think it's a good move. I think Timber as well, with Ben White being out for so long, he's been been run into the ground. So I think it is important that Arsenal, if we were to look to move Ben White on, that we bring in a replacement such as Livramento or Jimenez, who are the names being mentioned at the minute. Two very different types of players, I think. Jimenez is much more of an advanced, forward-thinking fullback, which we've obviously seen Bournemouth operate Milos Kerkez there, who before he signed for Liverpool. And Tino Livramento, he can operate on both sides. He's played right back and left back for England. He's played there for Newcastle too. So I think Livramento, I think he used to play for Chelsea as well. He was at Southampton not too long ago, before he signed for Newcastle. So yeah, two good options there to replace Ben White. However, I obviously hope that he remains at Arsenal because I think he's still a very good player. Now, chapter 2, Myles Lewis-Skelly. I'm really not happy about this one. It is quite unfortunate to hear, and I'm sure Myles is suffering from trauma hearing that Manchester United are interested. Yes, Manchester United have apparently opened talks with Arsenal, and they've inquired about Myles Lewis-Skelly's future. Myles, with just one Premier League start so far this season, he's played quite a lot of minutes in the Champions League, and in the cup competitions as well. However, in the Premier League, he's obviously been limited to minutes, one start, as I mentioned earlier. And even that one start, I think it was against Brighton, when Calafiori had to come out of the starting 11 due to injuries because he got a knock in the warm-up. So he wasn't even meant to start that game, which is just mental. Because we seen last season, his breakthrough at England, scoring on his England debut, locking up Rodrigo, and Real Madrid attack at the Bernabeu and at the Emirates, scoring against Manchester City, the Harden quotes, and then he goes and scores against them last season. So look, last season was definitely him and Ethan Nwaneri's breakout year, and we've seen similar treatment to Ethan Nwaneri at the start of the season, to the point where the club and him felt like it was a good decision to move out on loan and get some regular first team football, which, although in January looked like a smart decision, I think he might have picked the wrong club. That Jamie Carragher quote, I think he might have picked the wrong club to actually get the best out of him. So yeah, it is a shame that Ethan Nwaneri's loan has gone like this. Obviously, De Zerbi left quite early on in his spell at Marseille, and since then his minutes have been limited as well. But when he has played, I think he's looked good for Marseille, and I hope that Ethan Nwaneri can find a spot in the Arsenal first team next season. However, for Myles Lewis-Skelly, I think he's going to be targeting minutes next season. I think that's going to be his goal, because I think he's not going to make it to the World Cup unless, there's an injury crisis at Arsenal in midfield or in the left-back position, to the point where Lewis-Skelly has to play, because I just don't think that Arteta sees him as a first-teamer in that, his first or second choice. He's third choice left-back, and hasn't got any minutes in midfield, significant minutes in midfield, I should say. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Manchester United are interested in him. We've seen recently Aidan Heaven move to Manchester United from Arsenal, and Chido Obi-Martin was the other player that has moved to Manchester United from Arsenal. Could he follow in those footsteps? I really hope not. Because as I've said, Myles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, but we'll focus on Myles Lewis-Skelly. He's an immense talent. He's still so young, but he brings so much experience to Arsenal at that young age. As I said last season, I believe he's already made 50 appearances for Arsenal as well. So he is a really, really good player, top talent. He's a really good defender. The ability that he's got to pick the ball up, in build up, just spin a man and bring the ball forward. His progression up the pitch numbers, bringing the ball forward, those type of numbers, that data, that should be really high. That should be really good, especially compared to players in his position. And obviously that is because he is probably a midfielder. But he started his Arsenal career at left back, and he's really not moved. He's not moved significantly yet, as I've said. So hopefully Arsenal next season can try and make some space for him in that midfield, to the point where he will get regular minutes as a starter. And also, we've seen it a couple of times at the start of the season, but he's not even getting any minutes off the bench recently. And you look at the Everton game when it's 0-0 and we need a goal. Why isn't Myles Lewis-Skelly coming onto the pitch to try and create something, make something happen, take some players on, make an incisive pass? Why is he not getting any minutes in the Leverkusen first leg when we need a goal? Why is that the case? So for me, Myles Lewis-Skelly is definitely one to look out on this summer. I really hope that if he was to depart, it would only be on loan, and it's not going to be to Manchester United. However, this whole sort of talk around him and Manchester United keeps getting louder. So I thought I'd make a video on it expressing my thoughts. However, I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name's Tom. We're on the road to 100 subscribers if we're not already there by the time this video comes out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Benjamin White, Myles Lewis-Skelly. Please stay at Arsenal. Thank you.